After several hours traveling, the howling noises stopped, and then so did the scarab. I did a quick survey around our position while Jacob talked to the AI. There was an abandoned government reclamation station nearby. These places are usually good for scavenging supplies and equipment, but they often attracted desperate gangs.
Hello everybody, welcome to my latest back catalogue review. Now this is on Phoenix Point Behemoth Edition, which I bought when it was first released, and I'm sorry to say I've never actually played the game. I've played the prologue a couple of times, but I've never got into the game in detail, and for somebody who played all of the XCOM games thoroughly and in great detail, it even surprises me. So I thought I'd take this lull in games, as I said previously, not just a lull in ones that I'm interested in, but also the inability to be able to afford to buy any. I thought I would take that opportunity to go back through some of the games I have not played through, and either play through them or at least see what I think of them today. The reason I say think of them today is some of them have had some updates which have improved them. Now, I've already put out a couple of videos on my back catalogue reviews. I am probably going to do more in the future, and I know for a fact that some of the games that I'm going to be playing and releasing videos for have supposedly had updates, but let's just say I can't see what's changed. Now, with this game specifically, getting back to the video at hand, I don't know what's changed because, as I say, I've not really played any, and the video that you're going to be watching on screen, so the gameplay footage, is actually the first mission after the prologue. And I hate to say that I haven't actually got any footage from further on in the game, so if you're expecting to see some advanced stuff here, unfortunately not. But this is going to be just going through what the game is, what it's about, what I like about it, and what I don't like about it. And hopefully giving you a bit of an idea of what to expect. Now, of course, as with all of these games, technology will upgrade as you go through. You'll get better equipment, you might get better squad members, you might get better vehicles, etc, etc. But as it stands at the moment, let's get into it. So what do we expect? I mentioned previously XCOM. Now, XCOM was, as far as I'm aware, and please do correct me in the comments if I am wrong, it was the first of the turn-based tactical survival stroke, well, I don't quite know how to put it. It is turn-based, it's very tactical, and the idea is to survive, so that's probably as good an explanation as any. But in essence, it is a turn-based, tactical, squad-based shooter, where the primary goal is, in this one, to apparently wipe out bandits and mutated humans. The general flow of combat is move your characters into position. While they're moving, if they spot something of interest, you will stop where you originally spotted them, so you won't continue your movement. And then you can either deploy or carry on moving. Now, this particular game has 4 action points, so each of those action points does a specific task. You can reload, shoot, and move. Now, movement will give you a certain number of squares, I'm going to say, although they don't actually highlight as specific squares in this particular game. But they give you a specific number of squares movement. You can use more than one action point to move. In fact, you can use all 4. And if you use all 4, you will obviously move further. Now, what sets this game apart from games such as XCOM is immediately the access to vehicle weapons. Now, I'm not going to spoil too much by saying you have this for one mission. You probably get it again later, but I think it's just to get you into the fact that there are vehicles in this and they do play a little bit differently and can be extremely effective and useful. Don't go getting attached is all I'm trying to say, especially within the first mission. So back to combat. You have the traditional setup here. You move to a certain location, whether it's got low cover, full cover, or no cover, and you will either spot or be spotted by enemies. Now, when you spot an enemy, you have a lovely blue line which shows whether you are able to shoot them. That blue line will only show up if you're in a square which has a line of sight to be able to hit them. Does not mean you will kill them, and as with all of these types of games, you will probably at least initially miss more than you hit with your shots. The further the range, the more likely you are going to miss. That being said, you can improve your character's abilities, that much I am aware, even though I haven't got to that stage within the game myself. I do honestly feel that the shooting in this game is pretty solid. Now, I am probably going to play this on and off. It's not going to be one of my main games because, to be perfectly honest, I do think that although this is really good for video content, simply because a mission is the equivalent of a video, some of these missions do take a long time, and you could be editing out a lot of movement, so it would just be shooting for God knows how long the video is. But rather than getting into all of that, let's take a look at the important things with these games, and that is the visuals, the sound, and the gameplay. So starting with the visuals, this is actually a quite pretty game. Isometric games are always a bit of a funny one because in general you don't tend to take much note of the visuals because the viewpoint is almost looking down on the characters, so minute detail on the ground really isn't that important. In this game it's slightly different because, as you can see on screen, you do zoom in quite often, and when you zoom in either to do a focused shot or just to look around and zoom in, you do see quite a lot of detail. And I have noticed that there are quite a few of the textures, especially on vertical surfaces, that aren't quite right. You saw it just a few seconds ago when the character I was using was trying to look around the corner. The metal that she was up against was very, very smudged. And I get it. Look, you know, as I said, it's an isometric game, but you have given the option to zoom in. And when you zoom in and see just a smudged grey thing in front of you, it's not the best looking. But, and I have to say this, I don't think it matters that much. The only reason I've mentioned it is because there are going to be people out there who want an absolutely stunningly beautiful game. This is not it. I mean, even in isometric view, it's not the best looking game out there. But we have to remember this came out in 2021, so it's already 4 years old. And this was a last generation game. So this was PS4 and Xbox One, basically swan song of a game. It came out at the end of that generation, but it was still that generation. Now this is the PS5 version, but to be honest, I just think it's a performance increase. I don't think there's going to be much of a graphical increase, because it was released pretty much at the same time, but there was no actual game that was released. That sounds odd. You have to use the PS4 disc. They did not release a PS5 disc-based version of this game. And I don't believe they actually released a PS5 only. I think you had to buy the PS4 and it was a free upgrade. So I honestly do believe it was just a performance improvement, which I'm not going to say I'm upset about because, like I say, the visuals in this aren't bad, they're not perfect, but I don't think people play these games in general for the visuals. Now, sound-wise, it's okay. I'm not going to say it's absolutely amazing because I have definitely heard better games, but it is definitely okay. They've done a very good job. The rockets that you can hear going on there do have a nice sound to them. The guns have a nice sound, etc., etc. So there's not really much to say about it. There's no ambient sounds as such, but again, I don't think that's necessarily a problem, because moving on to the final part of this discussion stroke video, the gameplay is by far the most important thing with these games. Now, as I said, this is the first mission. It's actually after the prologue, but they are still giving instruction on how to do things. It's one of the reasons I did not include the prologue in this, because you can still see what the tutorials are like. Let's actually cover that off. It's part of gameplay after all. Tutorials are relatively straightforward. As soon as you go to do something, they do show up on screen. Now, one thing that I'm going to mention is that the tutorials aren't very consistent. And by that, I mean, I just jetpacked up to the top of a tower to open a chest to get some items. Now, I ran out of action points, so I couldn't open the chest. It did, when I finally got round to that character's next turn, it did take me about 5 minutes to work out how to open the chest, because there was no additional information about how to open a chest without it automatically opening. So, to explain, when you first get into a square adjacent to a chest, it automatically opens that chest. If you have no action points left, you can't take anything out of that chest. So on your next turn, you have to then re-enter the chest to take the items out. That was not explained. It didn't tell me how it was done. That caused me a big problem. I finally did work it out that on PlayStation 5 and probably PlayStation 4, it's pressing the R3 button, which is clicking the right stick in. That's how you access it, but nowhere on screen did it tell me this. And okay, I probably could have looked in the settings and found all the key bindings, etc. But if you're going to provide a very detailed instruction on how to do things, it even gave me an instruction on how to pick things up out of the chest, just not how to access it, which is extremely odd. It also didn't give any instruction on how to place things in your backpack rather than your inventory, so I spent about 2 minutes swapping between my gun and an ammo crate as my equipped item. I finally worked that out as well, that you press square to put it in your backpack rather than X to equip it. But on to the real gameplay. The meat and potatoes of these types of games, the combat. Now, combat is also going to include movement, because they are basically part and parcel of the same gameplay experience and gameplay loop. But as I mentioned before, you have 4 action points. Those action points can be split between movement, reload, and firing or attacking. Movement is up to 4 different distances. I think it's 4 squares per action point for most characters. I haven't found any that go faster than that, and I've found none that go slower, although the heavy weapons guy possibly does go slower. Once you move, you can move into low cover, high cover, or out in the open. They do give you bonuses to defense for obvious reasons, and damage mitigation if you are being attacked. I believe it's more that you do not get hit as often when you're in cover, but only from the direction the cover is facing. So if you're shot from the side, you still get hurt, as I found out in this mission, and that makes perfect sense. As with games like this, your attack rating is based on skill. Now, you don't find out about that in this first mission, so I can't actually show you any of those character type windows, I'm going to say, character type screens, where you basically level up your character. Normally, you would have to do that in a base, and unfortunately in this game I have not got to a base, so I have not experienced any of this. I do know from past experience that after this mission there is a mission to retake your base, and I think that's the one that I never got past. So that goes to show you how little of this game I've played. But as I was saying, the attack is all based on skill, and you have a percentage chance to hit. Now, unlike XCOM, where it tells you your percentage chance to hit, you don't actually see that in this particular game. All you see is you've got an enemy, and you have the ability to shoot them, as you're about to see on this screen now. It is pretty decent. I'm not going to say it's the best shooting system. I think XCOM might actually win out on that, but as you can see there, it just gives you this is where the people are, and this is what you can do. There's no percentage chance to hit, and it did cause me a few problems, because it tells you how much of their health is going to disappear if you hit all of their hits, but not how often or what percentage chance you're going to have. Sometimes that's quite difficult to work out tactically what you want to do, so it was a bit of a problem. That being said, I did feel the combat is as snappy as it can be with this type of game, because obviously it is turn-based, so the threat level is about positioning rather than reaction times. That in and of itself is something that I do react to and respond to better, because I am much better tactically than I am reaction. However, and this goes for all of these games, not just this one, I do find that these games do not do tactics very well. And I know it's a limitation of video games, but at the same time, I do find sometimes they're a little bit crazy. So for example, I go to shoot somebody around the end of a container. In real life, I would poke my head round and my weapon round, and basically that would be it. In this, I full body move into the open, shoot, and then full body move back behind cover. That's asking to get shot. If anyone in real life was in the equivalent of Overwatch, so keeping a lookout for movement, as soon as somebody full body moved into view, they would get shot. And I have a problem with that. And as I just said, I know it is a limitation of video games, and to make it not realistic tactical, but more, do you really want to shoot them because somebody else might be watching you? I get it. But for me, there's things that I would like to do that are impossible in games like this, and it does mean that my logical tactics don't always work, and I do lose people quite often because of that. What I'm trying to say is I'm not very good at these games. As much as I might like to pretend I am, I'm really not very good at them. I did play XCOM heavily, as I said at the beginning, and I did complete at least the first remake. In fact, I completed the first ever XCOM, Enemy Unknown. I didn't complete the second one, which was based in water. The whole thing was in water, which was odd. But I did complete the first ever remake, and I think that was called Enemy Unknown as well, which was very much the same as this, isometric, with modernish graphics. So, just to finalise, graphically, not too bad. Nothing to write home about, but definitely quite nice looking. Sound-wise, definitely functional, if not the best sounding game ever. And gameplay-wise, exactly as you would expect, pretty highly polished in some respects. But for me, there are certain things that aren't quite up to snuff. But overall, as a whole package, it's a very good game. Now, I've probably used a bit of a clickbaity title, and that's because of this end section. There's got to be some form of comparison between this and XCOM. XCOM is known as the daddy of this type of game. And I would say that from what I have played so far, this is definitely on par. I'm not going to say it's better, because I honestly don't think it is. But I think it brings enough differences to put it in a position where it can directly compete, if not join XCOM on your shelf. I think one of the problems with XCOM is there have been too many games which are very, very similar. Same enemies, same idea, basically just the same game with a number 2 stuck on it or something along those lines. This has got a different setting. So this isn't futuristic where aliens have landed. This is futuristic where the world's gone to hell and mutation has happened. Probably makes sense that it arrived just after the COVID pandemic. Does kind of make sense when you think about it like that. But anyway, I'm going to leave the video there. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that you have found this interesting. If you have, please make sure you click the like button. Subscribe if you are new to the channel, and please do leave me a comment down below to let me know what you think. I really do appreciate it. But as always, thanks very much. I look forward to seeing you in my next video very soon. You all take care. Bye for now.